I'm Richard Munchkin, and I have taken millions of dollars out of casinos around the world as a professional gambler. I grew up in a suburb of Chicago, and I was fascinated with games from the time I was very little. The winters back there are brutal, so we would stay inside and play games. In high school, my older brother invited some of his friends over to the house to play poker. And we were literally playing for nickels and dimes. And at the end of the day, I was ahead, $5.20. And it was like the heavens opened and the angels began to sing. And I thought, oh my God, I can actually make money playing cards. Like, this is the greatest thing in the world. So I started playing as much as I could. Basically, I went through college playing poker. That was how I earned a living while I was in college. And then one day, I was playing backgammon with a friend in a bar in Chicago. And he told me that he had a system for beating blackjack. There's a way of counting the cards and being able to keep track of them, and you can actually have a mathematical advantage. And he recommended a book. And I got it, and I read it, and I thought, okay, this makes sense. This is math. For my 21st birthday, I flew out to Las Vegas, and I started practicing to become a professional card counter. Counting cards is a method for keeping track of low cards and high cards, and the ratio of those two things. And blackjack, shoe, you know, is like 6 decks of cards. And when you play, cards are removed from the shoe. And that does affect what's going to happen the next hand. And when there are more low cards in the deck, that favors the house. So you want to bet as little as possible. When there are more tens and aces in the deck, the count goes higher. That favors the player, and you want to bet as much as possible. So smaller cards favor the house, and higher cards favor the player. That's basically how card counting works. And the question that I get asked most often is, isn't that illegal? And the answer is absolutely not. It's not illegal anywhere in the United States or any country I've ever been to. In the nice places, they come up and they say, we don't want your action anymore. And in the not so nice places, they can be pretty nasty. In the old days, card counters would get roughed up. In Las Vegas, they have been around the longest and been exposed to card counting the longest. The further you get away from Las Vegas, the less the casinos understood, and really the more money you could make because they just thought you were getting lucky. People would call me and say, I found a great game in Korea, or I found a great game in Russia. Those phone calls are worth literally millions of dollars. One of my friends calls me once and he says, I found a game that's really good. That means that I'm gonna go strap $50,000 in cash to my body, leave the wife and young kids at home, and head to an airport. And in this case, I was heading for Moscow. I had never been to Russia before. I had no idea what I was getting into. I mean, it's Russia. They can just say, we think you're a card counter. We've decided that's illegal. We're just taking the money back. My trip was about to go from a dream to a nightmare. I had never been to Russia before and had no reason to go because prior to this, they had no casinos. And the casino people really didn't understand the games. And they were giving away the store. The rules were so good. Any blackjack player that heard would have immediately jumped on a plane and flown over there to try to play. I go into this little casino, and it's off the lobby of a hotel. And there is a nightclub that's closed. I go look in the nightclub. It's dark. There's, you know, chairs and tables and a little stage. And then way in the back, I see a door with a porthole window with light behind it. I think it's the kitchen, but I go back there and I push through the door, and here's this little casino. There's 6 or 8 tables. There's only 2 customers in the whole place. But I sit down and I start to play. I bought in for $2,000, and the maximum bet on this table was $500. And I start to win. And the count goes higher, and so I start betting the maximum the table allows. And I just get lucky. Sometimes it has nothing to do with my skill. You just get lucky. I won every hand. It was ridiculous. But I'm a little bit worried because when we go into a casino to play, we set a number. How much is this casino comfortable losing? If you win over that, bad things start to happen. So we want to go right up to the ceiling and stop. So in Russia, I have no idea. I'm shooting in the dark here. In 15 minutes, I'd won $26,000. Now, the pit boss is a young guy. He looks like he's wearing his father's suit, and every hand I win, he just starts to look sicker and sicker. And the color starts to drain from his face, and I keep thinking, this is not gonna end well. So I finish the shoe, and I think I better just cash out. And now the same guy is the cashier, and he says, look, I'm sorry, we don't have enough cash to pay you. I say, how much do you have? Basically, he gives me back my $2,000, so I'm left with 22 $1,000 chips. And then he tells me, the owner will be here tomorrow. Come back tomorrow, he'll have your money. And now I'm starting to think, oh boy, this is gonna be a problem. I'm gonna get screwed out of $22,000. I immediately go to the Cosmos poker room and see Jeff. Now, Jeff is an Australian guy who discovered all these blackjack games in Russia early, and he has moved here and has been here for years. Jeff runs the poker room at the Cosmos Hotel. So he knows every casino and everything that is going on in the gambling scene in Moscow. And I tell him what happened. He goes, oh, yeah, they can't afford that much. He says, this is the way it works in Russia. The laws and the police and the courts, worthless. Every business has what's called a roof. And your roof is your local mafia boss. If you have a dispute, you go to your roof. And that casino's roof is Chechen mob. And he says, and you're in luck because my roof here at the poker room is also Chechen mob, but my roof is higher than their roof. And I say, okay. And he says, would you take $18,000 for the 22 chips? I was like, done. Let's do it right now. Jeff says, I have to leave, but this is Natasha. And here's this Russian woman, and she's mysterious like a femme fatale, kind of scary, like if you had sex with her, you might not live through it. And he says, Natasha will take care of you. She will introduce you to our roof and meet at the other casino. So I'm just sitting there waiting and waiting. And about 10 o'clock at night, Natasha comes up to me and she says, we go to get your money. And we drive back to the other casino. So we get out of the taxi and we walk into the lobby, and there's 2 huge guys with a little guy in the middle. And they're all wearing black turtlenecks and black suits. And I look over at the closed nightclub, and they have a metal detector there and 2 big security guards. And those security guards are not happy. It seems pretty clear these 2 groups of mobsters do not like each other. Natasha starts talking to the little one. So it's clear to me that these are my Chechen mobsters, and the guys over at the metal detector are their Chechen mobsters. She says, okay, we go. And now we all start heading for the metal detector. As we're going, the guards start talking to the guys behind me in Russian. And as we're going, the volume is getting louder and louder and louder, and to the point now they're yelling at each other. And as I'm going through the metal detector, one of the guards grabs me by the wrist and starts pulling me in, and one of the guys behind me grabs me by the other wrist and starts pulling me out. And now I'm in a literal tug of war between two factions of the Chechen mob. And I pull loose, and we all back out into the lobby, and Natasha says to me, "Those men do not want these men to go inside." I said, "Yeah, I kind of got the message." And she says, "You and me, we go in, and if they have the money, okay. If not, don't say a word, just come back out." Okay. We go into the casino, and it's the same pit boss, and he is white and sweating. And he says, "This is very bad. You should not have brought those men here. They should not be here." And I said, "Do you have my money?" And he says, "I have some." I said, "How much?" He says, 1,000. The guy gives me the 1,000, and I give him one chip. He says, "You come back in a week, and I give you another 1,000, and another week, another 1,000. And I say, "I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm gonna be back in America." So I'm gonna give the chips to them, the other mobsters out there in the lobby. They'll collect the money. And he says, "Oh no, only you can collect this money." I said, "Well, you'll have to take that up with them." So we go back out to the lobby, and I still have 21 $1,000 chips. And I wanna leave. I'm supposed to leave tomorrow. My only hope is that these guys are gonna give me the $18,000. Natasha talks to the little guy in Russian, and he keeps shaking his head. "No problem. Give me the chips." I said, "Well, Jeff said, like, you would give me $18,000 for the chips, and I don't want to." It was like, "Oh, okay, you give them to Jeff." I called Jeff, and Jeff says, "Leave the chips with Natasha and come down in the morning and pick up your money." I was like, Jeff, no. I'm not gonna give up my chips to anybody without getting the money at the same time. I'm certainly not gonna trust this Chechen mobster, and I'm not just gonna leave the chips with Natasha. I'm not even gonna leave them with Jeff. No, you get the chips when I get the money. And he says, "All right, well, just come down in the morning. I'll have the money for you there in the morning, and then you can give the chips to Natasha." So I go up to my room, and I try to sleep, but I can't. And plus, it's a really cheap hotel, and there are hookers that walk up and down the hallways knocking on people's doors. This is definitely not America. There is nothing here to protect me. Look, if I lost the $21,000 in the casino, that's fine. That happens all the time. It's nothing. But to lose it in this way, I'm just feeling awful. The next morning, I go to the poker room. Natasha is there. I say, "Do you have the money?" And she nods her head. And I say, "Where is it?" And she goes over to a cabinet. She comes back with $18,000. I don't even count it. I'm like, "Thank God." And I give her the chips. And Jeff's roof will collect the full 21,000 after I'm gone. It was one of the happiest transactions of my life. I immediately jump in a cab, and I drive directly to the airport, and I got on the plane. I had somehow survived a literal tug-of-war between two factions of the Chechen mob. Counting cards is never worth risking your life.